Hey there, Scott here from SocialNRG Presents, and thanks for joining us again. We've got another great episode for you today, this time featuring Felix Cavaliere, an internationally acclaimed American singer, songwriter, record producer, and musician. In 1964, Felix enjoyed initial success as the backing member of Joey Dee and the Starliters, who are known for their international hit The Peppermint Twist. However, he's perhaps best known as the lead singer and keyboard player with the Young Rascals during the latter part of the 1960s, with solid gold hits like Good Lovin', Groovin', and It's a Beautiful Morning. They also performed many times on The Ed Sullivan Show. He's won a vast array of awards and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997 with the Young Rascals. In 2009, he was further inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in Los Angeles, and in 2019, he was inducted into the Musicians Hall of Fame in Nashville, Tennessee. And today, Felix joins us from his home in Nashville for a look back at his career and to bring us up to speed on what he's been working on next. So sit back, relax, and get ready as SocialNRG now presents you with your Backstage Pass.
All right, that should be good.
Yeah, that's great. Nothing wrong with that.
A little pale, but
That's all right. And I'm a little red. I don't know why I come out so red in this room.
are you suntan?
No, not at all. Gosh, I'm in Victoria, Canada. We've had a terrible winter.
I love that. Yeah, you had a tough one, yeah.
Well, it's just, we never get snow up here, but we had a lot of snow this year. And ever since then, it's been cold and rainy. We haven't had sun yet. Usually I live on a lake, and we're usually swimming in the lake in early April. And it's too cold.
That's where Randy Bachman used to live. I don't know, does he still live there?
He actually just moved back to Victoria a little while ago. He lived on a place called Salt Spring Island, which is not too far from here.
Yeah.
About a 20-minute ferry ride from the ferry terminal. And he lived there for a few years, and then him and his wife split up, and he moved to Toronto. And then the winters got to him, so he wanted to come back, and he ended up working and getting a place in Victoria. One sec, I'm going to move this right here like that. There, that's better. Now I got you in a good spot. So now it looks like I'm looking right at you.
Well, that's half the thing. But yes. Anyway, this Zoom world is kind of pretty interesting. We're kind of doing a lot of stuff now with this book, and so. I'm going to do a little bit of investing here to try to get a video thing going so that I can, kind of really, just sit down instead of having to adjust it every time. Yeah, I like that. That's good. It's just bright. I don't know why. Well, I'll get it.
It's okay.
By the time I do my 100th one of these, I should have it. And then there's no more Zooms, right?
Yeah, don't you wish you had shares in Zoom before the pandemic hit?
Zoom, yeah. Maybe.
Holy smokes, I never heard of Zoom before that.
Yeah, good.
All of a sudden, everybody's using it.
Yep.
So you live in Nashville now?
Yes.
And how long have you been there?
I've been here quite a while. I got here in 1989.
Wow. And so
I came down here and on business, and I started seeing people. Matter of fact, John Kay from Steppenwolf was here. He's also from your area up there.
Yeah. Well, he's more from Toronto, I think, isn't he?
I thought he was West Coast. I love Canada. I love Canada. I've spent a lot of time up there. We did very, very well. My Rascal group did fantastic up there, and it's gorgeous. It's just cold. And my wife's from Arizona, so we ain't coming up there. Winter really hit you, huh? Wow.
Well, yeah, it's weird because I live in Victoria, which is, like I said, we seldom get snow. Very seldom. And it's a beautiful place, on the ocean. It's almost like a little London, England in a way. Double-decker buses and all that sort of stuff. And but I hate to say it, but much prettier, It's very clean and all that sort of stuff. But this winter has been just weird. But right across Canada, they've had a terrible winter. Everybody's complaining.
Oh, yeah.
Like, of course it gets cold up here, but some of these places, Winnipeg, just about 2 weeks ago had a huge, huge snowstorm, 2 days in a row, like massive.
The climate has definitely changed. The Nashville weather has changed quite a bit too. Just out west from us, they don't have any water, and we've got so much rain and so much water. Of course, it's nice and green, just like Ireland here almost.
Right.
It's strange, It's just very strange.
Yeah, it's a very odd thing. I try to reserve my opinions on this show, but it's like I think you and I are both on the same wavelength. But I was going to say, so you moved to Nashville, obviously, for the songwriting. It makes more sense there. You put a lot of friends there that you met up with, like you mentioned John Kay.
Well, when I first got here, there were two of Bruce Springsteen's people. One of them passed, and the other one's still here. There was, of course, Bobby Gaudio's here from Four Seasons, and I'm not even talking about the country artists, but Steven Tyler lives here. Justin Timberlake lives here. They're all here. And what's good about it is that there's a community. I tell this as a joke, but it's really not a joke. When I first came here, people said, well, there's a bank in town that you should go to because the bank caters to musicians, songwriters, and publishers. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they got a special department that will loan money for you to build a studio. I said, really? And a special department for musicians? I said, it's just like New York. The department was called the Exit. That's true. They wouldn't talk to us. Out here, they not only welcomed you, but they helped you. So right away I felt like, wow, this is a good place to go to. Now, this is 30 years later. It's a madhouse here.
Yeah.
I mean, we are the bachelorette capital of the United States.
Yeah. What's with that? Like
Chamber of Commerce.
Really? So now was it the Bachelorette was based out of Nashville?
Well, it's just it's a destination for all these young ladies to come down and raise hell. The Chamber of Commerce promoted all this. They decided, we want to attract visitors. So they did two things. Besides, we had a big show they had with, Chris Cross and, many of us. And we tried to entice, the conventioneers to come to town. Then they built a 2 million square foot convention center, which is in the shape of a guitar, by the way.
Oh, is that right?
And it worked because this is the place. I mean, it's just it's kind of like a mixed bag for me because the fact that it used to be really a nice little quaint town. Now it's not a nice little quaint town anymore. You're talking about Victoria Island, yeah.
Yeah. But I've been to Nashville about 3 or 4 times. Actually, we played there with Bachman and Turner at the Gibson warehouse out there.
Yes.
We did a show there that would have been 2010 or 2011, I think, way back then.
You wouldn't believe it. You come down here and you go like, wait a second, what happened here? Did it explode or implode? I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty. The growth here is phenomenal, and I'm sure the city fathers are very happy about it. But now we've got traffic, which we didn't have. We got crime, which we didn't have. It's a madhouse.
Yeah.
But, listen, it's still good for us who are musicians and songwriters. So you've been down here. You've come through here.
Oh yeah, several times. Actually, the very first time I went down as a specialist on the NAMM show. There was this product that was made out of Vancouver. It was called the Double Whammy, which was basically it was a whammy on for a guitar, but it was one would dip the first 3 strings, the other one would dip the second 3 strings, and then you could tie them together. It was interesting. I mean, you could play the bottom strings and they would stay in tune while you bent the top strings, right? So you could sort of get some sort of steel guitar effects and things like that. So I went there for that. That was the very first time. Of course, I didn't see much in Nashville because I was stuck in the convention center the whole time.
It's the old convention center, though, probably, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been the old one for sure. Yeah, because this was back, oh God, I'm thinking this is 2001, way back.
That was
yeah, and then I came up, of course, with Randy. I've been there a couple times with Randy. So,
what were you, a musician in the band, or if you're part of?
Yeah, I'm basically his bass player, lead singer.
Oh, fantastic! Great, man.
Yeah, so I sing all the Burton Cummings songs.
Yeah, well, I worked with Burton a while ago too. He's doing well, thank goodness. But please say hello to Randy if you happen to run into him. I haven't seen him in quite a few years now.
I will. We were supposed to be on tour right now, and we moved it now. It's going to go down into November. So
I was supposed to work with Randy last fall. We had a bunch of shows lined up in America, and they canceled it at the last moment. Yeah.
Oh,
I think he was, I don't know if it was worried about COVID or what it was, but it's gone, so.
yeah. Yeah, but it seems to be on its way out bit by bit. The thing is, I think it's one of those things we're just going to have to learn to live with. Like, get your flu shots every year, and you're going to get your COVID shots every year.
I'm afraid so. Otherwise, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know around with it at my age. Like I say, I'm just trying to avoid it. But, we're back on the road, but I see a lot of cases on the road. I mean, people who, well, I don't have it anymore, but I've had it, is what they tell me. And I go, like, oh boy, I just don't want it,
Well, I was really quite worried about COVID when it hit because, for one thing, my wife is what they would call a cancer survivor. So she's coming up 5 years now, but she's got a very compromised lung because of the radiation.
Sure.
And so it would have been deadly for her. But that was, the very first strains of COVID. Now, when it came down, last December, it was December 23rd. I came down with COVID, with Omicron, and then my wife got it. But because it was the Omicron was basically lodged in my throat. It was like having strep throat for about 2-3 days, and very little in the top of my lungs. And she got the same thing, so I wasn't all that concerned. And sure enough, we both got over it within about 10 days. But the older version would have been just lethal for her,
Wow.
So
it gets less and less and less, and let's just hope it stays getting less and less.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, I want to talk about you.
Oh, yeah, just
so, we know what's wild is I had no idea that you were the Joey Dee and the Starliters.
Yeah.
Like that was your break into show business, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, pretty much. That was the impetus that drove me into the wonderful world of music. Yes.
Yeah. And then as I looked more into it, you actually toured into England with the Beatles on the same bill.
Well, basically what happened is the quick story, and I have this book that explains it all, but I was in college, I was a pre-med student, and I had a band. And I went to the Catskill Mountains to work for a summer at a hotel. At the hotel, they would have headliners come in every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Joey Dee and the Starliters came in, and they saw me, they met me, and it changed my life because my ex-partner Eddie Brigatti there, his brother was part of the Starliters, David. Okay, so now the September fall semester comes. They're on their way to Europe. Their organ player quits. He had recently gotten married and went home. They remembered me, called me, asked me if I would join them in Germany. So the tour went from Germany to Scandinavia, and the group that was opening up for Joey was the Beatles. And I was at a turning point in my life because I was supposed to be back in school, but I had taken a semester off, and I had to make a decision, and they made my decision for me because, and what I saw and heard was pretty impressive in a lot of ways. Number one, because I don't have to tell you, the audience, the females were just going absolutely bananas. I mean, they were going bonkers, and you don't know what's going on. So the first thing you say, what is that? So that's the Beatles. That's the what? What is it? But I mean, hysteria, not just, like applause. Second of all, was their music. And as a musician, you can understand what I'm saying because I didn't really feel, we didn't know how, I had no idea how their songwriting ability was going to be the best on earth, but as far as musicians, they were okay. I mean, they didn't blow my mind. They were good. I thought mostly they were a singing group, to tell you the truth. I think their music was just secondary, And when they did Americans' music, it was all right. Nothing to brag about. But when they did their stuff, they did their like, dun, 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 dun. You just sit back and you said like, wow, that's pretty cool, man. And little did I know it was going to take over the entire earth, Well,
that's
my decision.
That's what I found so interesting is because Sid Bernstein picked you up. Now, Sid Bernstein was a major person on getting the Beatles to tour North America. And I didn't even realize the Rascals opened up Shea Stadium's.
Oh, no, see, that's not true. We got to.
Oh, it isn't? Okay.
Got to correct that.
Okay.
That's why I wrote this book. Seriously.
Good. Okay, good.
What happened is we did a show in 2013 with Steve Vance's called Once Upon a Dream on Broadway. And just like we just did here, we had the four of us, the original guys, at press conferences. Everybody had a different answer for the same question. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yes.
Well, I said, wait a second. I got to write this stuff down because here's what happened. Yes, Sid Bernstein brought the Beatles to the Ed Sullivan performance the first time, which was 64. The second time he brought them to Shea Stadium, we had just kind of signed up with him. So he got us, obviously, seats there. We were at the dugout. And on the scoreboard, he put, the Rascals are coming. The Rascals are coming. The Rascals are coming. The Rascals are coming. And their manager, Brian Epstein, was not too thrilled. As a matter of fact,
I can imagine.
He said, either that comes off within 30 seconds or there's no show. So it lasted a few minutes, but that's the story. So no, the Beatles had no opening act. I don't know if they ever had an opening act, after they kind of hit Ed Sullivan. I don't think they ever needed one, So they did that, which was, that was quite an event, let me tell you.
Well, I know that when they played in Toronto, they had two opening acts. One of them, what's his name? You'll remember. Remember, Sonny, thank you for the love.
Yeah, cool. I didn't know that. Yeah.
He opened up for them and one other act, and I can't remember what it was. So because the Beatles would only play 25 minutes.
Yeah, but still, they sold the place out, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Times 10. So that's interesting. Yeah.
And so something we have in common, a couple things. We're both Paisan.
No kidding, really.
Yeah, my real last name is Della Vicenza. Della
Vicenza, what a lovely name.
Yeah, Vicenza's near Venice. Della means from or of, right? And of course, I know that, of course, you're Italian, and so is John Sebastian, is he not? Or is he just well versed in it?
Oh, his real name is Pugliese.
Pugliese,
John Sebastian Pugliese. But his family, well, I think they come from Florence area. Even though Puglia is a place over there. All I know is that he speaks fluent Florentine, which is a little different from the dialects of. But yeah, have you ever been over there? Have you been to Venice?
Well, I'll tell you. A few years back, my wife, I never went to Italy because I wanted to bring the right girl. Just because I didn't want to go there unless I brought the right person, Anyway, so I met my wife, Kelly, and all of a sudden I went, I'm going to ask this girl to marry me. I never thought I'd ever do that. And so I figured, well, the best thing I can do. So I brought her to Vicenza and asked her to be a Della Vicenza in Vicenza.
Fantastic.
I know, it was great. It was a good one, right?
I went over there, took my wife over there too. She's from Arizona, and she also never had been. And so it was quite an experience, because, that city's gone through a lot of changes over the years, a lot of changes. Fascinating place.
Yeah, well, that whole country is just remarkable.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous everywhere you go. The history and just, I don't know. It's just it makes you feel special somehow.
Well, you got that right. You see, and that's really, really, really important. You nailed it because we Italians, we get a pretty bad rap in the United States, man. They look at us, and I'm sure it's in Canada too. They look at us. Come on, go over there, take a look around, and see what it looks like to be Italian. As soon as you get off the airport in Rome, you see Leonardo da Vinci, and you see, like, come on, what are you kidding me? I mean, Michelangelo, all those people. It's right on the streets. It's gorgeous. But no, we have to have this gangster thing. We're gangsters, don't you know? By the way, speaking of it, have you watching this Stanley Tucci thing on CNN?
No, not at all.
Tune into CNN. This is the second series. He travels to Italy and goes to all of the food places.
Oh, my nephew Mark told me about him.
Don't miss it.
Yeah, he told me, and I that's right. He told me about it a while ago, and that's right, and I never did do it. I got to tune into it. I wonder if I can get it on demand or
Oh,
something.
of course you can. Yeah, because basically, and he goes to all the different areas, and as to make this a very simple conversation. Italians, where you're from is important. It has to do with your diet, your dialect, your culture, and he goes to a lot of the different places. And man, when he gets to those food places, you just go like, okay, let me see if I can find that around here, because it's really fun, man. It's really beautifully done.
I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which is 450 miles north of Toronto. Okay, so it's up in northern Ontario. Quite a good Italian, population there. And I'll tell you, the pizza and the Italian food in Sault Ste. Marie, I have never tasted better in my life. You can't find mind you, New York is pretty good. I have to give it to New York too. But boy, oh boy, I just can't believe how good the Italian food is there. But, sadly, I'm not, there's 7 kids in our family. I don't think any of us learned how to speak Italian. My parents would talk Italian behind our backs. So, that's how they converse with themselves, so the kids wouldn't know what they were talking about.
Not only that, but it's the same thing goes on today with the Spanish people, stuff like that. They're kind of like looked down on. What are you, immigrants? You speak English? Kind of all that crap. In the meantime, we're losing our culture. People. The kids don't know how to speak it. You don't know how to speak it. I don't know how to speak it. That's a loss.
That's a very good point. I never thought of it that way. And it's interesting. You talked about the mafia connection. It brought to mind my oldest brother became very successful in business. And he, at one point, became vice president of Algoma Steel, which was the big steel plant in Sault Ste. Marie. It was basically a one-horse town. And there was rumors around there going, oh, yeah, he got into that because of mafia connections. It's like, what? My family couldn't be further from that,
But did he keep his name? Did he keep?
Oh, of course, yeah. One prominent musician up here, Tom Lavin, has a band called Powder Blues, very, very big blues band. And I was recording in his studio one day, and he walked up. He says, "Della Vicenza, that's a good name." He says, "But you should go with Della V." I said, "Della V? Why?" He says, "It's easy to say." I said, "Yeah, but Della V sounds kind of weird." And he says, don't argue with me. He says, I'm the one that called Colin James his name. I gave Colin James his name. So anyway, so I stuck with it. But then I started doing gigs, and people would advertise me as Mick Tel Aviv. I can't win, right?
It's kind of sad, because America. I mean, it's the simplest way is the right way. No, it's not. I mean, you've got a beautiful name. But it takes a little thinking and doing to say it. I refuse to change my name. I mean, but you should hear how my name is butchered. Mm. I mean, it's like, I have to correct the people when they well, John Sebastian mentioned John, as I say, spoke my name correctly on the air one year. And, when you say use Italian, you pronounce all the vowels, Cavaliere.
Yes.
But that's not how it is in English. In English, it's Cavaliere,
Yeah.
But everybody's confused. How do I say your name? So a lot of people just leave the vowel off. They just go Cavaliere, And after a while, I say, okay.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Felix,
Yeah. But another thing we share, too, is you lost your mom at a young age. I lost my mom when I was 9. And you lost your mom when you were 13. So what happened with her? I'm sorry?
She had cancer, See, my mom was a professional woman way before women were, considered, good candidates for medicine. She was head of a pharmacy in New York City at the St. Vincent Hospital, which was a major thing for a woman in the 40s. You know what I'm saying? In 48, I believe, something like that. But the problem was they were not aware of the dangers of X-ray machines.
Oh.
And I think she was exposed, you see, and it happened. By the time they looked and saw, it was kind of late. But yeah, so you know what it's like to be kind of like out there. But so is Paul McCartney and these people over in England too. It's not but it caused me not only to really take care of myself, so that I wouldn't do that to my kids, but it also caused me to kind of like pay attention to, being here, because it's important.
Mm. Yeah, and what kind of cancer did she have? I'm sorry.
It was in the ovarian. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My mother had breast cancer, but they didn't discover it until way too late. It was just way too late.
A long time ago, too.
Yeah.
Now, you get checked and you've got a shot. Hey, your wife. God bless.
Yes.
Hope she.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you go day by day. Every day is a new day.
I lost a daughter and the same darn thing, man, with the breast. But you know what? We're still here, and we'll all be okay.
Well, anyway, I got to tell you, it sure is an honor talking to you because I was such a fan of you guys. My brothers too. I remember Freedom Suite was on constant rotation at our house. Just that whole thing, and of course, your songs were different. Like Good Lovin' was a major hit for you guys, but you didn't write that one, correct?
Right.
But that was a major hit. And I remember, I got to ask you this, just as a kid from Sault Ste. Marie, what the heck was it like being on the Ed Sullivan Show?
Well, I remember Randy told me a story about them coming to the East to be on one of those shows. You worked 7 days a week for that show. He started your rehearsals Monday a.m. very early, 6:30, 7 o'clock. You showed up at the CBS studio. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday evening, they would do a complete show with an audience, not televised. It would be like a run-through. And then Sunday would be the live performance. See, what people don't know is that Ed Sullivan was a columnist before he was a television personality. And in those days, the columns are where you got your advertising, your promotion, your publicity. Walter Winchell was a good example. In other words, you get on the newspaper column and people know about you. Well, CBS asked him to do a variety show. But unlike, television shows now, which just pay you union scale, they paid you your entire fee for a concert.
Really?
Yes. So in other words, when you were on there, whatever your price was, you got that price. Because they would give him however many $100,000 to do a show. He would rent, hire, just like we were working. So it was lucrative. There's a lot of work. But you see, that the interesting thing about it, and you can relate to this, is you did 7 days of work for 2 minutes of airtime.
Right.
Now, we're used to working like an hour or 2 hours or maybe more on stage. So you have all that energy pent up for the big show and you use 2 minutes. Yeah. So Eddie used to come home and wreck our apartment because he had all this, because we used to, you don't even turn on your amp at 2 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's not even warmed up the tubes, So, but it was interesting because it was live, but it was really live in that, when he made a mistake, everybody had to scurry to make up that time. Because what he would do, he would see somebody he knew in the audience, and he would not stop what he was supposed to do. He would continue talking to the person in the audience. Well, now somebody back there has to make up that time,
right?
And that caused a little bit of tension backstage.
Wow.
It was
I remember hearing that the Beatles, basically he got the Beatles for nothing. I think that was the deal. Brian Epstein said, I want them to open and close the show 2 weeks in a row.
Well, I'm sure basically they made a good deal there, because, we all got paid,
Wow.
It was interesting. Well, look, you're coming from England and you want to take over the United States market. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. But so you rehearsed every day, like basically stage blocking, all this sort of stuff. And I'm just, so every day you're there all day.
No, we didn't have to stay all day, but you got there early in the morning and then you got your time slot. And see, the thing is that coming from a different generation, which he did, he really didn't cater to the musicians. He was more in tune with like the comedians and, the people that were from his age group. And I had to kind of put my foot down once after the third time we did the show and say, hey, wait a second. No, aren't you using our name for the headline of this show? Then how come we got the worst dressing room in the house? You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, man. You know, like let's treat us right, because, you know, he looked at us like, you know, like not in the same sense that he would look at you know, Buddy Hackett, you know, or the people that, you know, even that little mouse Topo Gigio, you know what I'm saying? So you had to kind of say, look, this is an older man, you know. I mean, I understand, you know, but the hell with him. We're going to get the dressing room.
Right.
So we all scrunched into a little tiny corner, you know, and the comedians got like this palace, you know. Wait a second, time out, you know. Yeah.
Well, we did a show. We did a taping at the Roseland Ballroom, which was right across from the Ed Sullivan Theater there, and just back in 2010 again, I believe. And so we got, because that street is almost like an alley. It's so narrow. So we went back and forth, and, you know, we were hanging out with David Letterman's crowd. That was before the Stephen Colbert takeover, and so. And then we ended up getting invited to watch a taping of Letterman, which was fantastic. I love that. So here I am in that same theater where the Beatles were. And of course, that's that magic thing. Now, you've been there since then, I imagine. They've made it smaller. It's not as, the Ed Sullivan Theater was bigger than the David Letterman Theater, let's say, right, for seats?
Oh, they had to redo the whole place. See, they abandoned that place for quite a few years. You know, in between the Ed Sullivan and I think the David Letterman show was the next people to use it. It was terrible. You know, it was like abandoned property. You know, it was like musty and dirty, and they redid that whole place.
Oh,
it was brand new. Oh yeah, well, it was very funky, man. You know, I guess they owned it, CBS. They knew it was valuable in terms of, you know, usage, but nobody was using it. I wonder how many years. It was quite a few years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Letterman didn't get into that theater till, gosh, the 90s.
Exactly.
So, because he was on NBC with the late night with David Letterman until he switched over to CBS. Yeah. So
it was abandoned, and they did something there. I remember going there. They and it was. And you've been in places like that have been abandoned. You know what that feels like. You know, it was really funky. But they had a great idea. Say, well, we're going to sign David, you know, to this CBS late night, and we're going to redo the entire theater. And they did. We were asked to do the campaign with Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis. It was a movie, you know, about two congressmen, you know, going for election. And of course, Will Ferrell's character, his theme song, or his theme was Taking Care of Business. Right. So that's why we were there. So we went into one of those theaters in New Orleans. This is where it was shot. And that theater, I don't know when they had used it the last time, but it was cold and dank. Oh my God. And we were there from about 7 a.m. until about 7 p.m. And when the movie came out, I'm sitting there looking, and it was like, whew, we were gone. It was that fast. Yeah. Amazing how long that takes. Wow, movies, yeah, they take a long time. And
yeah.
You know, it's so interesting what you say about theaters, because, you know, as we travel, you know, they do these theaters over, and they redo them. However, they don't do the dressing rooms. They just do the front house.
I know.
The back is as bad as it was in 19th century, you know?
I know. It's interesting. There's a friend of mine who, Marco, he's quite a successful real estate person in Southern Ontario, and he's also quite a great musician, actually. And and so he bought a theater in Belleville, Ontario, gutted it, and built it from the dressing rooms out.
Ah, good.
It's a beautiful theater because the dressing rooms are fantastic. The green rooms are great, and then the stage is great. Where the crew sits is great, and then the seats went in.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, and it's a great place to play. I bet you'll play there soon.
Well, we worked in Toronto when we did that Once Upon a Dream. It was at a theater that's there. I can't remember the name. Famous man there. He has a you know, like a Broadway type theater. Loved it. That's a great town, man.
Yeah,
country. You know, I love, like, you know, the beauty as you go west. It's just, you know, was it Lake Louise there? And
yeah,
I mean, it's fantastic, you know, and the people, you know, they treat us royally when we're there. It's my ex-guitar player was born in Ottawa.
And I was going to ask where he was from, because I knew he was a Canadian.
Yes.
Now, Ottawa's a pretty city, too.
Jean-Paul Gourly. Yeah, he was born in Ottawa and migrated to the United States, was adopted by a man by the name of Cornish. And so he's known as Gene Cornish, but that's not his real name. So, whenever we go up there, we kind of get kind of like a hometown, hello, which is nice.
Well, you guys, like you mentioned it earlier, the Rascals, it's like Canada was really, really embraced you guys.
Which was fine with me because, like I say, it's really nice to even hear that, even after all these years. It's a treat. We don't get up there as much as I'd like to, but it's always a treat when we do.
But those songs, oh my gosh, I just love all that stuff. And what I liked about your songs, Groovin', all that stuff. Beautiful Morning, How Can I Be Sure? The thing about those songs is they weren't typical radio songs. They really, to me, they were more musical, almost in a way theatrical, I guess. And I think that because you had such a great R&B sort of feel, and I think that's what made it, Well,
we also had Arif Bardeen in the studio helping us arrange those songs, and so they took on a quality of like George Martin did for the Beatles, for example. I was classically trained, so I was able to do from a musical point of view, and he was able to enhance from an arranging point of view everything that was, kind of written. And Atlantic was just a wonderful place to make music. Atlantic Records.
Well, weren't you the first white band to be signed to Atlantic?
We were.
Amazing.
Red and Black label. They had Atco, which had Sonny and Cher and people like that, but on the Red and Black. But you see, the point I'm trying to make is that, the record company gave us, first of all, permission to produce ourselves. Second of all, gave us free studio time, which it was like from heaven, let me tell you, because when you can go into a room, as you well know, now we can do it in our homes to a degree with a computer, but you had to have a studio in those days. Are you kidding? It was a professional studio. We were the only 8-track in the United States, except for Les Paul, who developed it with Tommy Dowd and Phil Ely and these people at Atlanta. So the environment was, let's make great music here. And that's what Atlantic made us feel like. You're going to make great music here, kids.
Yeah.
What else can you say except for thank you for that? Because
and you certainly did. You guys invented the Blue-Eyed Soul thing, as far as I'm concerned.
We did a lot towards that, But I find that interesting because, even I live in Nashville now, but when I have a conversation with a Nashvilleian, they have no doubt where it comes from. They know exactly. Well, it's the same thing when we would do songs. Thinking we were doing Beatles songs, it would come out R&B because it's just kind of like the way, we treated it. It wasn't intentional by any means. It was just, that's our personality. So, okay, that's fine. But as you can see, I see your eyes are nice and blue, but that's...
I got green eyes, actually.
Oh, green-eyed lady. There you go.
Yeah. That's my wife. My wife's a green-eyed lady. Yeah.
That's but she's Irish, right?
Kelly, she's got German. She's sort of a mixed breed. She's German, English, and God, I can't remember what the other part is. But yeah, but she's a tall blonde girl.
Yeah, well, green-eyed Italian is pretty rare.
Yeah, well, Northern Italy. Northern Italy. When you think of Northern Italy, it's closer to like Germany, Switzerland, all that. You get that mix.
Big country.
Yeah, but I got to go back. So. Okay, so you were classically trained on piano. When did the organ come into your life? Was that just something when you started playing pop music, or did you start playing organ earlier than that?
A friend of mine, again, I go back to the book. I was invited at a young age to a friend of mine said, well, there's a club up in New Rochelle that has an organ trio in there. You want to go? I said, let's go. What is it? And I heard this group was called the Mighty Cravers. It had an organ, and the organist was singing, playing bass, and he was, of course, playing, the rhythm and the solos. And then there was a sax player and a drummer, just 3 pieces. And I heard it, and I said, what is that? Oh, that's a Hammond B3. Wow. I said, I got to check this out, because it was an orchestra. I mean, it was fantastic. You had 2 Leslies, which are the speakers.
Yes.
Maybe the audience doesn't. And I couldn't believe it. So I went on kind of like a quest, which I wrote about, in this book, because, it was epiphany. I said, wow, it's got keys, so I know I can play it. I just, what is it? And I found it, but I had to go to New York to find it, because, it was huge, but that was quite an experience for me. But that was it. It was this fella, Rex something, I can't remember his name, and the Mighty Cravers. And it just started the whole process for me.
Well, that's the thing, is that with the Rascals, Eddie sang and played tambourine and percussion things, and then Dino on drums, and Gene Cornish on guitar. You did the keyboards and the bass and sang.
Yeah.
Now, you're playing bass pedals?
Yes.
Holy smokes.
Sure. Well, that's the instrument. It's kind of like, riding a bike. You learn how to ride a bike, and you learn how to pedal and shift and steer and all that. It's the same thing. It's just, that is the instrument. That instrument, nowadays I play the organ standing up because I have a bass player.
Right.
The reason that we did that, and everybody else did that too, is because of the sound changes that came from, don't forget, now when we started, it was mono worlds. I don't even know if people know what mono is, but then stereo evolved. Now the sound got to be a little more sophisticated, and Arif said, well, there's a bass player in house here that, why don't you bring him to the sessions? Well, he happened to be King Curtis's bass player, and he happened to be Chuck Rainey.
Yeah.
And we said, thank you, Lord, for bringing this gem to our room, because I can't play pedals like that, man.
No.
I can do it, but I can't do it like that. So that was a real boon to us. And, he's become a dear friend. And then, of course, from there to, all of the, we had, being in New York, we had all the symphonic people come in too, Richard Davis, and we had Ron Carter on some of our songs, these are the finest in the world coming into that room, when Ron Carter came in, I couldn't play. And he said, little brother, man, we want to get out of here. You better straighten out. I would look over and I said, shit, that Ron Carter, man, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
It threw me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on your recordings, were there, I'm assuming the first album, you probably played bass pedals.
Yes, for the most part. I think we had Gene to play on one of the songs, bass. I don't know if that was first album or second album, but yeah, I did it all on the bass. And it's hard to make that thing sound good. And we tried everything we could, because like when you throw the Leslie on, which is that sound that goes around, it also affects the bass. Now, instead of your bass going doom, doom, it's going doom with a whirl in it.
Right.
So you got to record it separately. Well, hey, man, we had 8 tracks. We didn't have 100 tracks like you have now. So we would try to get that thing to sound good. And, it's a different sound. It's made for an organ trio sound. Really, it's not made for, pop records, which were getting better and better and more sophisticated sonically, But, so we brought in a bass, but we just never found a person, man or woman, that fit in with the maniacs that I was working with,
And plus, there was the magic back then of the 4 people too.
Yeah, it just happened that way. And of course, my idea was, as I say, based on this organ trio that I heard. I said, well, how about if I just put, great singers and great players, and I'll take care of the rest. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? And it worked, And then, like later, we just never found anybody that fit into the mold. You know what I mean? Because we had success as we were. Let's leave it, for now, And then, unfortunately, by the time we had to really extrapolate and bring in new, kind of like health, we broke up.
Well, I remember Good Lovin' is like the one thing about the solo is at the end of the solo, instead of the bass doing like, let's say, the 1, 4, 5 at the end, the bass actually follows the line. Da 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 ba da da ba. So was that done on purpose? Was that like I mean, obviously it probably was, but I'm just thinking it might have been easier for your feet to follow your right hand. Does that make sense?
But melodically, it sounded good when it was. See, it was more of an enhancement. When you pop, the bass line with the solo line. You know what I mean? Boom, 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 boom. Instead of boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Because most bass players, you give them, they'll play 100 notes unless you tell them, I only want 3.
Well, I'm the opposite because I started out as a guitar player, so I know I like to play simple for the guitar players.
The way it's supposed to be. A bass is not supposed to be 1,000 notes, but they do it. So
Yeah.
I want 1, 4, 5. But anyway, it's an instrument, and as you say, it is a derivative of the guitar. But remember now, there's a transition period. Most of the people in my time back then, they played that upright bass. There was an upright bass was really, I mean, if you listen to Elvis and all those people, they had uprights,
Right.
And now the transition from that to a so-called Fender, threw a lot of people, man. I saw a lot of very famous bass players not able to do it. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, people who, like you, came from the guitar world, it was an easy transition. Because it's just, that's the way it's played, it's picked. And then we get like Marcus Miller where they started picking it and, and then you got, it's just evolved into, it's really an call, Jaco Pastorius and, I mean, there's so many great bass players. Will Lee's another example. Oh my God,
Yeah.
But in those days, it was interesting. We cut, like, for example, How Can I Be Sure twice. We did it once with a stand-up. And we did it once with a Fender, different sounds, completely different feel, really.
Well, look at, Phil Spector would use both.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd have the upright and the electric bass side by side for that wall of sound thing.
Yeah, I tried that one time on one of my first productions, and you need the walls to get that sound. I didn't have walls, but yeah, it's a great instrument, and as I say, it's the foundation. Without a bass player and a drummer, you really don't have too much of a band. That's how I feel about it.
So your mom ran a pharmacy. What was your dad? What did your dad do?
He was a dentist.
Oh, wow.
But my family was all medical. My uncles and everybody was, I was supposed to do that. Everybody in my family was pretty much that. I mean, there's just that generation. But, I got the call to go into this mad world, and I did. I went.
Well, you did well. You did very, very well.
I don't regret it at all, but I still carry an affinity for those arts, those healing arts. I'm very well versed in a lot of the homeopathics, and I just enjoy it. It's part of my genetic makeup. I feel it.
Yeah, and so you were a good student, obviously, in school. I mean, you were pre-med.
I was okay. I mean, like I say, I was able to get in, and pass, and the passing became harder and harder the more I did music.
Right.
The more music came in, the lower the grades were.
Yeah.
Up your tongue,
I can totally relate. I was in high school. I went to music classes and I skipped out and jammed at music stores for the other classes, But so your parents, I mean, you obviously started your lessons at a young age.
5, yeah.
5, yeah. So your parents were supportive of your music all along, but more as a sideline, not expecting it to be a profession so much.
I really don't know. As you know, my mom wasn't there, but she's the one that pushed for me to be classical. And I guess if there was to be a musical career, it was to be in that genre. It was to be as classical. Never heard of rock and roll in my house prior to her demise. But it's what happened. But it's the musical training that you get. It's the education you get in theory. And the problem I had with classical, the more creative you are, the less you're allowed to create in classical. I mean, teach it whack you over the hands. I mean, that's not how Mr. Bach wrote that. Don't do it like that. There's little signs. How they put the signs in the music. They want it loud. They want it soft. I mean, even if I just put ta-tang instead of tong,
Yeah.
Oh, what was that on my knuckles? Well, that's not how Mr. Schubert wanted that. Otherwise, he would have written it like that. So anyway, I rebelled at the kind of discipline that, you got to do somebody else's music, which with all due respect, I mean, it's been around for hundreds of years. Do it right.
This may be something you can answer for me, being a keyboard player, is that I noticed that, with the old rock and roll songs, so many of them, like the Fats Domino songs and things like that, a lot of them are in flat keys.
Yeah.
Why would that be?
Horns.
For the horns.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
You don't go be natural to a horn player. They'll leave. And besides, there's a lot of those keys. It's so interesting. I mean, people who don't know about the different keys, they sound better than other keys. You know what I mean? They just sound better. Like when we did "How Can I Be Sure," for example. It's pretty high. We're doing that in D minor. And Mr. Eddie there, who sang it, was not too thrilled with those high A's, that he had to sing. Matter of fact, we almost killed him. You know what I mean? But we got a performance out of him that was miracle. I mean, but it's high, but it sounds better in D minor than it does in C minor. Why? I don't know. There must be some explanation. But, it's the choice of keys that really makes a big difference in music.
Well, I know that when I sub, like I got a pretty good ear. Like I can pretty much, I know where a song, even if I've never played a song before, I sort of can hear all the changes and stuff ahead of time in A440. But if I'm playing in a band that is tuned down half a step, I have a much harder time with those, and I don't know what that is.
Well, perfect pitch. You've got perfect pitch. You've got the semblances of perfect pitch, which is good and bad. As you say, it's tarred, isn't it?
Well, because relative pitch is something where I'd be able to hear those changes no matter where I was, correct?
Perfect pitch is a boon and a curse at the same time because, for example, like an organ, an organ does not go out of tune. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody's playing, as you say, a little out of tune, oh my God, there's a tremendous clash in your. It's one of the reasons I gave up drugs. My head was about to split, because, you see the guitars, you guys got to tune up all the time. Organs there all the time. As long as your electricity's on, you're fine.
Yeah.
But you must have some perfect pitch. You should probably test that out and find out. You probably have perfect pitch.
Well, I have a friend of mine that I've worked with since we were in high school together. We still work together after all these years. And he's a brilliant musician. And it's incredible. Like he would hear like a really intricate Steely Dan song, let's say. And he would sit down and play it like from the top of his head, but totally in the wrong key. And I go, "You're playing the wrong key." He says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It's actually here." And so he thinks I'm a genius because I can hear the key. I think he's a genius because I can't do what he does at all. I can hear the key, but I certainly can't hear those intervals like he can.
Well, like I say, everybody has a different set of ears, and, the ones that, for example, when you do the classical music, that is a whole course you take, ear training. You learn to hear, the changes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's part of what you've got to develop your ears. Some people, maybe their ears are already developed, like down here in Nashville, the musicians use what they call the number system.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that started in classical music. The one is the tonic, and then there's the dominant, which is the 5. That's been in classical music since it began. And the beauty of that, as you well know, is if the person comes in to do the session and they want to transpose it to a different key, you just change it.
It's still numbers. It's just a different key now.
Exactly. But I mean, this is all part of it. I believe seriously that, like, for example, some people are born with, but you can learn music and you can learn to train your ears. If you want to, just try it, see what happens, Mm-hmm. It's not just for us, it's for everybody, really.
So just out of interest, who what? I'll tell you what, this is something I usually save for the end, but I want to do this with you. Is it possible I could bring up some pictures and have you comment on them?
Of course.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. I'm going to see if I can share the screen here.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I got something going on here. Can you see this screen?
Oh, yeah.
Joey Dee?
Absolutely.
So now with Joey Dee and the Starliters, they played in the Peppermint Lounge.
Right.
So that's where the Peppermint Twist was written for.
Correct.
Now, where did the name the Starlighters come from?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Because I thought
that was the musicians that were behind him, and I guess he came up, someone came up with that, just like everybody else names their group, that's the name. I have to.
Okay.
He's got a book out also. Joey is maybe in there.
Oh, okay.
Be a copy.
Okay. And then, okay, here we go.
Oh yeah, I remember those guys, the Young Rascals. Yes.
So the Young Rascals to the Rascals, what's the story there?
There's another story that's pretty simple. Basically, we were in California at the Whiskey A Go-Go. Good Lovin' had just come out. And we were trying to wrap up, the East Coast and the West Coast of the U.S. Radio station-wise. Manager calls up and said, well, lads, I had to make a change. I said, well, what do you mean, man? He said, well, unfortunately, somebody has the name Rascals. And there was a group called the Harmonica Rascals in those days, 100 years ago, It was in the Milton Berle show. And so I changed it. I said, what do you mean you changed it? Well, I put in the Young, and I said, "Oh man, come on! You know how it is with a name. It's like somebody names your daughter.
Yeah.
So, and I tell it as a joke now because I've answered this question. Is that there was a show in those days called The Little Rascals. Do you remember the?
Oh yeah.
They asked me, "Did that dog really have a ring around his eye, or was that painted on?" And I go, "Get out of my house."
Well, yeah. To be the truth be known, I've always wondered that myself.
There you go. See, so when we had our first hit record, right after that, I said, you know what, we're changing this name. Now, it may have not been a good business decision because people got confused. Is this the Young Rascals or is this the Old Rascals? This is the Rascals. But I did not like it. It's the same with those uniforms that we had on. In those days, you had to wear a suit and tie on stage because it was 21 and over. Right. So we said, well, how about if we come up with a costume? We put the costume on it. We got la 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 la. And the owner of the club said, you got to still put on a tie. So it ruined the whole damn thing. We had to put a tie on anyway. We tried, whatever. Yeah.
Well, it was a cool look, though. I really do. I think it's a great look.
It was interesting. It was just, those suits are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And let me tell you, they don't need a hanger. They stand up by themselves.
I can relate. I've done shows with costume changes, and boy, they get pretty dank after a while.
Let me tell you, yeah.
Yeah. How about this?
Yeah, there he is, Uncle Ed.
Yeah. So I wonder do you know which appearance that might have been? Would that be the first one?
First one's got to be the first one, yeah, because everybody's smiling. You know how it is with groups, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody was having a good time there, Plus Dino, his hair, he hadn't done his Paul McCartney thing yet,
Yeah, he sort of started to take on that look, didn't he?
He did it, and he enjoyed every moment of it. Yeah.
But what a wonderful drummer he was.
He was great.
Really good drummer.
Well, he had an immediate advantage in that he was left-handed.
Oh.
And he never changed his drums around so it would be like the snare on the other side. So his left hand, which is the snare hand, the backbeat hand, was monstrous from day one.
Oh, wow.
The other advantage that he had is that when he came up working in a club that was known for his jazz. So he was working with people like Buddy Rich, Lionel Hampton, G. Krupa, Louis Bellson. And these drummers were leaders of their band. So instead of just keeping the beat, they had to put on a show. So he learned how to do the twirling.
Yeah.
Which nobody was doing in rock and roll.
Yeah. He definitely was the showman. And that's true. I never saw that before that.
And he was really, like a powerhouse. He was like having a locomotive right down the block saying, okay, are you going to get out of the way or am I going to push you over? He was strong, man. And I, from the first day that I played with him, it was joy. I got to say, we may have had our problems over the years, but he was phenomenal, man, on those drums. And it made it so exciting, to be on stage because literally had to keep up with that level of intensity, and we did.
So what's everybody doing these days from the Rascals?
Father Time has set in a little bit. We got a little health issues going on with the group. Gene, we got together in 2019 trying to do sort of like a tour, and he had a heart attack on stage. He just went down, man.
Oh gosh.
But he's still in recovery from that, and he's okay, but he's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dean was also not doing too well, as far as health wise. You really, being a musician, like some people take care of themselves. Some people don't take care of themselves. Some people think they're superhuman, and some people know they're not. So it's taken its toll. Sorry to say, because these are my mates. We go back a long way, and, I just wish everything could have ended up as nice as it started. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate. My very first professional band, we're all still best friends.
Good for you.
Yeah, very, very, very lucky. And here's you guys again.
By the way, as you know,
yeah, it is pretty rare.
It's very rare. In business as well, marriages, business, no difference. Yeah, that looks like a TV show that we did somewhere.
That's got to be.
Yeah, it might have been in England, come to think of it, because I had my dashiki on, and I used that on my England tours. Yeah, it might have been. I don't know. I'm not sure what that was, but yeah, it's a nice set though.
You've been honored by Hammond organ too, right?
Yeah. Hammond organ started a Hall of Fame, and there's a lot of us in there: Stevie Winwood and Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff, and it's a great group.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yep, there's an album cover for you.
Yeah, they're starting to take on the McCartney persona there.
Yeah, you can see it right there. It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
He did look like Paul. And, like I say, yeah, there's an early one as well. Yeah. We could prove we could write then in those days. Yes, that's good. Yeah.
Look what I found here.
That's a lyric. Yeah, great.
Yeah, for grooving. Yeah. I don't know whose handwriting that is.
Yeah, well, interesting.
It looks fairly original.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be. I know the bottom one is definitely my typing, but I don't know. We had a collaboration of sorts. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I wish it could have been a little bit more, normal, but it wasn't. And basically, it's a subject that causes a lot of discontent. But, music is supposed to be the half music and half lyrics. That's how it was. And it really was not like that, So, I would write the title, I would write the chorus, I would write the music, you know what I mean? But Eddie was good at the verses. He could come up with a nice little like flowery song, And I wish it stayed like that, because we were very, very good friends at the time,
Well, you definitely wrote some great songs together. I mean, and so what you're saying is that musically and the hooks basically you had to start with.
Yeah.
And then it was the filler that came in to finish it off with it.
Oh yeah, and like I say, it's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what a team is for,
Exactly.
But it's so interesting what happens in life, because if you have a winning combination, don't change it.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it, because it happens rarely on earth, and it's God-given, and it's when you try to interfere with that, when you change the structure or whatever it was, like I use it in baseball, if I'm the starting pitcher, let me start because we're winning, don't change it. You want to come in pitch, but you're not a pitcher,
Were you a sports guy? Did you play sports as a kid?
I didn't play them, but I watched them.
Oh, okay.
I was too small. But you see, my whole life has been connected with athletes, you know what I mean? Because they want to do what we do and we want to do what they do.
Very true. Very true.
I want to get into that hockey ring. I want to get into that basketball, but I can't. And I know I can't. But they want to play what I do, and most of them can't. So it's great. So we have a great relationship.
Well, how many successful businessmen that I meet, doing these big conferences and things like that, and they said, I would drop everything to do what you do for a living.
Yeah, they'll learn. They'll learn.
I'd like to take them aside and show them my bank account compared to theirs.
Yeah, well, I do know a lot of people who do that as a secondary life. You know what I mean? Like they make their money and then they come out and play. As a matter of fact, the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has a special event with the corporate bands.
Oh.
And of course, to get into that special event, as a company, you have to give them X $1,000, and then they have a contest. And I was a judge at a few of those, and it's supposed to be people from your company who have a band. And then some of us judge the best band, and they get a plaque in the Hall of Fame, So I had, for example, Morgan Stanley band, or, it's fun. But that's the way for those people to do it. Go out and start a band that you don't have to worry about making a living on. Then it's really fun.
Yeah. Because you don't have to worry about the money.
To worry about it.
It's like being in your parents' basement all over again.
Yeah. But, as you well know, this is a whole different world from when, we started, and now it's pretty strange out there now. It's very different.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I don't know how or why sometimes people even write music at this point, aside from just, people write songs because that's what they do. Like, Paul McCartney writes a song every day, I'm sure, if not, because that's what he does. And so he's going to release them whether they're successful or not.
Correct.
But a lot of people are releasing albums. I'm going, well, what is it? 60,000 albums are released every day to Spotify.
Wow.
So I think that's the number. I may be off, but I think it was 60,000 are released every day.
I used to speak, and I still do to a degree, at music schools and things like that, and I see these, wonderful faces looking up at me and wonder, what the hell should I do, But you have to realize that, for example, if you're lucky enough and talented enough to go into video game music, you got a lot of zeros in your bank account, man.
Oh, yeah.
People don't realize this, how lucrative those games are for the composer. Nobody knows your name, but the bank does.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, too, is that it's a different world, but it's maybe not such a bad world. Back in the day, I mean, as you know, there was a lot of bands that we thought were big rock stars that were penniless. I mean, I've heard stories from Tommy James, with the Shondells. It's like, wow.
Of course. See, but that's one of the reasons that I admire Tommy so much, because I've also heard a lot of people bitch and moan and whine about that fact. But you know what? I never heard him complain. As a matter of fact, if you speak to him, he'll tell you, look, I'm still famous. I still can work. I still have a name. I still get paid. How can I complain about that? And I really respect him for that, because unfortunately, I know a lot of whiners. Well,
oh, yeah.
They screwed me up. You know what? Yeah. Anyway, long story short, there's still plenty of places for a musician to make a living. Plenty of them. They may not be the same places that you and I aspired for, but it's okay. You want to be a musician? There's a lot of places for you.
Yeah, good point. Here's something I dug up.
There you go, Tommy. Yeah, you are.
There you go, huh?
Eric, I haven't seen him in quite a while. Yeah, Eric Burden. Yeah, yes.
Look at those seats. $6.50 for the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah, remember that?
Oh man.
Well, that's the thing. Now, like I say, to pair up with other acts. Like I'm doing a tour right now with Mickey Dolenz. We're trying that out. And as I say, we were supposed to go out with Randy. Randy last year, we had about 10 shows. It gets expensive for the ticket holder, because you got to pay all of our fees, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a different world now. But in the beginning, when rock and roll first came into the theaters, I was able to see Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, the Platters, the Drifters. They were all on one stage. It was $5, if that.
Well, back then, kids used to save up their allowance, and now those kids are all spending the money that they have saved up all their lives. So,
yeah, well, yeah. But you want to have a date today, and you want to go see McCartney, you better have some bucks.
oh, good Lord. Yeah, no kidding. Good Lord.
You want to take somebody with you, you know?
Yeah, that was this Freedom Suite album cover.
Yeah, well, you see, what we did is, Dino, the drummer, the Paul McCartney-looking guy there, he really took care of the artwork. That was his province, you know? And it was good because he had some problems with the recording. You know, he had a different concept of how a drum should sound, you know? So it was just good to give him a project that would keep him very happy and out of the studio, you know? It's true. So he did all our covers. He was responsible for the...
Can you elaborate on what you were talking about with his regards to...
Well, basically, he liked a big bass drum, a large bass drum.
Oh.
And, you know, when you're in a recording studio, that may not be the right idea. You got to mute it. You know, you got to put, things in it that make it. Otherwise, the entire lower part of your sound spectrum is gone. You know, I mean, where's the bass live? You know, nowadays with digital, you have a longer, frequency range, from top to bottom. But in those days, you had tape. And basically what happened is, seriously, if you got too much bottom on a groove of a record, it skipped.
Yes.
Yes. So, okay, technically you can't have all that much bottom. Now, my God, the bottom that comes out of these records, they can tear down a building,
Well, I heard lots of stories. You remember those direct to disc recordings they had back in the early 80s, late 70s? Yeah. And there's quite a few instances where they were doing an orchestra doing the 1812 overture. And when the cannons would hit at the end, the needles would skip off the record.
Yeah. Well, all of these technical things, we're very well versed in coming from the old school, and they don't exist. Matter of fact, I think the only thing they had a problem with was like brittleness in the digital world. It was like kind of like tinny up on the top end, and they've gotten rid of that now. I tell you, it's pretty interesting. Now, of course, there's a huge market now for vinyl again.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to have that disc and that sound, with it. Interesting. I find that very interesting, There's a sweetness and a warmth to it, no doubt about it. But when you do want to do the 1812 overture, man, you got the spectrum from all the way over there on the right side of your freaking frequencies to the left side of your bass. It's pretty amazing. If your ears can hear it.
Yeah.
After a while, you say, what are you talking about, man? I can't hear that,
Exactly. I know that's one of the perils of being in music all my life.
Yep.
And there's you and John Sebastian.
Yeah, that was an event we did down in, I think it was NYU. Not that much. The last time I saw Glenn Fry, as a matter of fact, he was there. Yeah. It was a seminar that was done for the music school there. And a friend of ours was the commentator there. And he's both friends with John. John is an amazing musician, man. I mean, John plays a hell of a guitar. He plays a hell of a harmonica. He writes phenomenal songs. And he's a great storyteller. If I could tell you, can I tell a John Sebastian story?
Oh, I'm a huge Love and Spoonful fan, so please share.
He goes on, and he's got this kind of demeanor that he talks very slowly, and he says, when I was young, my parents sent me to camp, and while I was at camp, I met these twin girls, and man, I'll tell you something, it really inspired me. And then he goes, did you ever have to make up your mind? Now, if that's not a great story, but I love it.
Oh, it's just wonderful. Yeah, all those songs. I used to play the Love and Spoonful Greatest Hits album, especially on repeat all the time.
Yeah. Great man. He's a great guy. He's a granddad, and he's a friend. We used to be kind of rivals in the old days in New York City. They had the downtown and we had the uptown. Because they were folky and we were funky, But we have become lifelong friends, and I value his friendship. He's a great guy.
Yeah, well, fantastic. There we go. There's you and Mickey.
There you are. Yeah, that whole Mickey, man, he's out there, bro. Let me tell you. He's a funny guy. Wow. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We're trying this out. We're trying to get an audience reaction if they like the pairing, because certainly the music, they had some great music.
Absolutely.
They had the advantage of having some of the finest songwriters on earth do their repertoire. They had Simon, Carole King, and Boys at Heart, and good songs, really good.
Now, when do you commence with this tour? I'm sorry, I missed that.
We started it already in Pennsylvania, and we're taking it next to New York and to Massachusetts. And, the audience, the fans, they're the people that decide whether they want this or not. If they want it, we'll do it. If not, on to the next project,
Mickey is quite a music, what's the word I'm looking for? Anthologist, like you are. I heard a cut recently that surprised the heck out of me, and he was doing an acoustic stripped down version of Good Morning, Good Morning from Sgt. Pepper.
Interesting.
And it's really interesting. It's like, I was really surprised. A friend of mine sent it to me, and I went, it was such an interesting take on that song. And apparently the story he tells is that he was actually in the studio shortly after they had cut it. And John says, he says, "Hey, Monkey Boy," whatever he called him. He had some nickname for him. And he said, "I want you to hear this song." And so he heard it before it was released. Wow. And I think that's one of the reasons why he put that on this album.
Well, all of those original Monkey were pretty talented people. I mean, I got to know all of them at one time or another. Peter Tork actually lived in Connecticut, where I lived for a while. Davey, Joe was just one of the funniest guys you ever want to meet. I mean, he was like small. He was like a jockey. He's that size, and he had that gift of being able to mimic all of the different accents that come out of the United Kingdom, like the Irish and the Scotch, and he had he was so funny, man. I mean, he used to tell these jokes in the cars as we were going to work, very talented. The whole group, was chosen. They were all handpicked, of course, and Mike just passed. I don't know if people realize he was one of the inventors and creators of the music videos.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows that. I mean, like I said, he was before MTV doing music videos on Nickelodeon.
Exactly, and his mother invented whiteout.
Talented
yeah.
guys. And Mickey's the last survivor, and he's funny, man. I tell you, it's hard to keep a straight face when he's in the room.
Well, he was always like that back in the day too. It's like he lit up the screen as the funny guy, Yeah, but I still love that show. that show was great.
Great idea. I mean, think about that. Look at all the advertisement you get having a show on every week. Are you kidding? You can sell a ton of records that way, man.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. Well, the Beatles sort of had it with that cartoon, I guess. But there was that Beatles cartoon, which was terrible. The voices didn't sound anything like them. I know. And there was a great shot.
Yeah.
So you got a Kronos on top of your B3 these days, I see.
Yeah, I use that for piano sounds and for kind of pads. And now I've got an extra keyboard player. It makes it a little easier. And we also carry horns now whenever we can. So, but all of that was in that little box. See, when we first started, and I'm sure you could probably identify with that. I mean, as our music repertoire advanced, we really wanted to reproduce that on stage.
Right.
I'm saying, you got horns, okay, well, I'll play the horns. We got strings, okay, I'll play the strings. I mean, now only we have real, I sampled, strings and horns right on that box. Right. It's pretty incredible what is happening inside of a box like that.
Oh, it's insane.
I think one day, I know we got to get out of here, but one day I was in Manny's Music in New York City, which used to be on what is it, 46th Street, something like that. All the music stores were there. And Oscar Peterson, who was also Canadian, came into the room. And for those who don't know who he was one of the best keyboard players that ever lived. And I heard him in the synth room. He came in there and they said, "Well, here, why don't you try this, Mr. Peterson?" Oh, my God. It was like, can you imagine if Beethoven had one of those boxes?
Oscar Peterson on a synth?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what I said.
There's a moment.
Well, you should have heard, because, he's trying out this instrument, and it was like, I better get back to the drawing board. This guy, he was amazing.
That guy forgot more than I'll ever learn.
Oh, incredible. But on a synth, he's playing like clavinets. He was playing like, like whole orchestras on these fingers here, violins and, Mormon Tabernacle in this hand. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
So, is this your current band?
Pretty much, yes. Pretty much, yes. Yeah, exactly. That's the new band right there. Yeah.
So, who are the guys in your new band these days?
The different ones the bass player is from Orleans. That's Lance Hoppin. He was helping us out, and then, as I say, with the horns, but pretty much everybody else is in the band. Yes.
Okay, cool.
They're Nashville people, most of them.
Okay, great. Good bunch of guys.
Hey, man, I've been together 16 years with these guys.
Yeah.
That speaks for itself. My Rascals, we lasted 5, and then we imploded.
Well, it's like me with Randy. I've been with Randy 21 years, 22 years now. You add up the Guess Who and BTO. I've been with them way longer than both those put together.
Yeah. It's sad but true.
There you go.
Yep. There's a cover for you.
Yeah, you're looking good, man. You've looked after yourself.
Yeah, I got lucky with many things. One of them was yoga. I got involved with the guru in the 60s and stayed my whole life.
I know.
And that really keeps your body and your mind and your spirit going.
It's interesting. Yeah, because I read an excerpt from your book about your Swami.
Yeah. He really saved my sanity because the fact that how it is in our business. I mean, it's easy to jump off the ship and jump into the water, and you may not be able to get back in the boat. So, I got very lucky there. But I also learned a lot from him, and it's the kind of thing that basically when he's no longer with us, but it stays with you your whole life, because if you keep doing, it's simple. It's mental, physical, spiritual health. I mean, that's really what it is.
Well, the drummer in my band, like I mentioned earlier, that my first band were still best friends. And back when we first started, he got involved in meditation, and he would meditate. And he still every day meditates at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, every day. And now he's gotten into yoga. He's done martial arts, all that stuff. He's really looked after himself throughout his years. Now he's gotten into yoga, and he's one of these guys. When he focuses on something, he gives it his all. He's just one of those guys.
Exactly what I do. Exactly. And basically, see, the yoga that you're talking about, I believe right now is probably the physical, but yoga is all of the above, all of the above. I mean, it's mental, it's meditation, it's diet, it's exercise, and it's also, I will use the word prayer, but it's a little different from prayer. It's meditation, it's connection, but all of those three ingredients will keep you pretty much in good shape.
So what's your diet like when you eat? Well, how do you eat?
Well, I used to be a vegetarian for many years, and I switched. I eat a lot of fish, so I'm a fish-arian right now. My wife's also a veggie, and she doesn't eat any meat at all, and occasional fish. But with this pandemic, our diet's been really changed because we're mostly at home. We eat mostly at home, and fortunately, she's a great cook, so I'm in great shape here. You got to be careful what and going on the road. Oh my God, you either eat that or you may not eat. So it's been much healthier to stay home than it was to go on the road in most cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I find a lot of times Randy has been quite conscientious of things on our diets on the road, just because Randy years ago had a bypass, and so he's been really trying to keep his health together that way. So
I worked with him with Ringo. That's where I met him the first time in 90.
Oh, of course, that's right. That would have been 96, 95, 94.
He's a whole different Randy than he was then.
Oh yeah, half the man he used to be, as
Because I remember being in Japan and they didn't have beds big enough for this guy at that time.
Yeah,
He's really taking care of himself, I think.
yeah. But yeah, interesting. Well, I there's a so I got that photo on your book. By the way, your book, I've read some excerpts and now I got to pick it up because it really is. The stories are fantastic. Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a bit on Jimi Hendrix for the people?
Sure.
Because he played in Joey and the Starliters too.
At one time, yeah. Yeah, Joey has some really interesting people. Joey Pesci was in part of his band at one time.
Joe Pesci?
Yeah.
The actor?
Yeah. He's also very, very responsible for Four Seasons too, Joey Pesci.
Correct. I remember that from the show, yeah.
Well, Jimmy, and I've got to take off. I got this call coming in. But Jimmy was in the New York scene for many years. I think he came from Seattle, came from West Coast.
Yes.
And, he was working with the Isleys at the time. Got to know him. He was very shy, very tall, but he didn't really stand up straight when he played. He kind of bent over. He was kind of, shy. And then the years go by, and we're playing in Central Park, and the opening act is the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So what happened is he comes back to the dressing room, and I said, Jimmy, he's got a hat, he's got a feather, he's got vests, he's standing up straight, he's looking me right in the eye. And I said, Jimmy, what happened, man? He says, I'm going to show you what happened. And he went out there, and our lovely little Rascal fans were like this. Wow. Killed it, man. He's lighting his guitar on fire. He's playing with his teeth. He's playing behind. He went to England, see? And then the English, they saw, wow, are you kidding? This guy's doing what you do, what I do, and what he does. One guy. And that fellow Chaz Chandler from the Animals picked up on that and put him into the recording studio. And, next thing you know, Jimi Hendrix is Jimi Hendrix. Mm-hmm. He was always Jimi Hendrix, just never knew it.
Right.
So that was a real blossoming that, and just to make a long story short, he was a good guy. He was a really nice man. He was a gentle, giving, caring guy. To the point of where, he got himself in trouble being too gentle and caring and giving because he gave every place he went. That's the Jimmy I knew anyway. He was not a mean bone in his body.
Well, he gave you a watch one day.
Yeah, he's just a good guy, man. I didn't ask for it. Basically, he just, he had that kind of a soul, how can I help you? You know what I mean? And he got himself in trouble that way because he said yes to everybody, But you know what? Wow. What a loss.
Yeah,
great talent. He hadn't even begun. Believe me, what he had in the gas tank would have gone on for generations. And it is as it is.
Yeah,
good man.
So your book, Memoir of a Rascal, is out now. Fantastic, and the cover taken by Linda Eastman, who became Linda McCartney.
Correct. Yeah.
So she took that picture long before she was with Paul, I assume.
Yeah, she used to be around as a photographer for groups and bands, and she used to go around, and she was just another lovely human being. I mean, a gem of a woman, And I was very, very happy that the estate, Paul, and they allowed us to use that because she does great photography. Anybody wants to take a look at her work, I'm sure you can find one of those coffee table books. She has 2 or 3 of them that are all the acts of those days. All of them are in there, and great shots. I mean, that's a beautiful shot she took of me.
Yeah,
it's worth getting the book just to get that shot. I'll tell you.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Felix. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. I just can't believe that I've actually had a chance to talk to you.
Amen. And I hope we run into one another because we share a lot of friends and stories. And if you get down here, let me know. And if I get up there, I promise I'll let you know.
Yeah, you got it. You got my phone number.
I do. And thank you for your help, man. I appreciate it. Please say hello to Randy if you see him.
I will.
Love you and your country, my man. I want you to know that.
Hi, take care, Felix. Thanks for being on the show.
All the best.
Cheers. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for joining us. Check out our many other episodes and vignettes for more great content. And please like, share, and subscribe, and become a member at SocialNRGpresents.com to access all our content and earn valuable energy points just for watching.